What's going on, everybody? It's Lester from Cannabis Wiki. Welcome to Weed Talks, where we talk to people inside the cannabis industry and the community, find out who they are and what they're up to. Through these uncertain times, living heroes are emerging around us every day. Mothers, fathers, husbands, wives, bus drivers, cashiers, volunteers, doctors, nurses, PSWs, all essential workers. I wanted to stop and just say that you guys are appreciated and thank you. That being said, I let you guys know a couple weeks ago that we were having a special guest come on our show. So I'd like to not waste any more time and let's dive right into it because I'm itching to chop it up with this lady. We have a multifaceted artist today, a proven successful entrepreneur. She helped build Love Life Massage in Miami, South Beach, Miami, that is. She's also featured in Weed World UK. She is a big-time writer with featured articles in Weed World UK, Cannabis Now, Skunk Magazine, also anthologies by Ed Rosenthal. She is a cannabis advocate, a cultivator, and a hash maker. She has learned some tutelage from masters like Frenchy Cannoli. She's also appeared on Viceland Bon Appetit Season 1, 3. She's been a judge for international competitions such as Monsters Cup, Turp Tower International, Masters of Rosin. So this lady has been all over the globe. She is well known. Guys, I wasting no more time. Let me bring you the Duchess. Lady, what's going on?
Hi.
How are you?
Hey, it's good. I'm good. It's good. Love the intro.
Wait, there's a lot more that can be said about you, lady. You are one busy person on this scene. I really thank you for taking the time and talking to us today here on Weed Talks. So let's dive in. Well, first, let's find out what's going on there in Oakland. You're in Oakland right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
How is it? Yeah.
We're under shelter at home. We've been under shelter at home since March 17th. You know, it takes a toll on you, but I have to say people are pretty much observing social distancing, which is being fantastic because, you know, we're all in this together. We're all in this together. So really you're at home, you get to go to the grocery store, you get to go to the doctor, post office, get to come back home. That's it.
Right. So is it, didn't California get straight lockdown, like everybody has to stay home?
Well, I mean, actually, we have a even stronger lockdown order that came into effect March 31st. It's really like if you're not doing anything essential, definitely the police can give you a fine. So it's a misdemeanor now to be just traipsing about doing nothing.
Like everybody else. What is the fine set there for up here? The fine is reaching somewhere around $750.
I think it's $250 to $500.
Okay, so
so you're under shelter at home as well.
Yeah, definitely. Things are getting cases are rising up every day. They're just starting to come around into actually closing everything down. The seriousness of this, it's hard when you try and stop people from doing their natural freedoms. So I kind of understand it about some of the ones that are a little harder to come along, but as long as there's people like yourself, myself, actually letting everybody know, plus the news and everybody else, of how serious this is and what we all need to do our part into bending the curve here.
Indeed. I mean, as I said, my mom works in a hospital. She's every day risking her life doing stuff, really purchasing material for the hospital. It's just like, people, help it out. Stay home. Stay home, please.
Yeah, no, that's real talk. It's a serious thing. So let's get into a little bit of the story about you, lady. I'd like to jump back to let's take it from when you were 20 to 23. It seems like that is the beginning of some real changes in life.
Yeah, well, what happened is I met this great guy who was so smart, but he smoked so much cannabis, and I didn't smoke at all. I didn't smoke anything. He's so smart, and he wants to smoke weed, and he's like, "This is so good for you." I'm like, "You're killing your brain. And then one day, the weed literally talked to me. It was a beautiful piece of glass, was the impetus for me to try smoking. And I felt so good in that one moment. And actually, the very next moment, I did some calculus to make sure that my brain was still there, because I was a math major in college. And that was my biggest thing, not losing my brain. And I realized that the government had lied to me. And literally, that was it. The government had lied. And within a short time, we had to start growing weed because I liked weed too much. I mean, just like that.
So this person was the first one to show you how to cultivate cannabis, how to grow?
My husband, he was my boyfriend at the time, but my husband was the person who taught me how to grow weed. I was kind of like ribbing him. It doesn't look like it's like in the magazines. He's like, oh, well, then you do it. So then I did.
So being a mathematician or a math major, I'm assuming that you must have made some excellent weed your first batch.
No, I've been making really bad weed for quite a long time.
Serious?
I still smoked it, but I lived in Florida. It was not a situation. I lived in Florida. Okay, when we started growing weed, it was like, let's say 2000, I say 2003, I think. The issue is you can't just talk to anybody. One of the things that I really love about being here in California is that you can talk to just about anybody about cannabis, and someone has some bit of information that can teach you something. So in Florida, we were doing the parking 4 blocks away, going to the hydroponic store, talking about tomatoes. I mean, there was a lot of talk about tomatoes. So when I say it was bad weed, it just wasn't good weed. Like, I wouldn't make hash from it right now. So that's bad weed. I thought, we were able to smoke a whole lot more than most people, even though we still got some from the dealer here and there, but we were able to smoke for years, for quite a few years, almost 10 years, all our own weed. So that was great.
So it was the first step towards sustainability for cannabis.
Indeed, for me, because just the sheer amount of cannabis opened up my mind. And I was a very black and white person, being a math major, to me, everything was either right or wrong. And one of the things that cannabis did was shows me the grays of life. And once you realize there's one gray, then there's infinite amount of grays. And I have to tell you, for years, I just wanted to smoke as much weed as I could possibly afford to smoke and learn as much about myself as possible. Now, mind you, I'm still doing that now, but in Florida, I didn't have any idea that I was making a lifestyle choice. That was just something to get me along and deal with my anxiety that I didn't even really know I had until I got here.
Right. So what was the point? Because you've been in Miami now for, what was it, like 13 years. So at what point did you decide to pick up and I'm out of Miami, because you had a flourishing business going?
Yes, we had a flourishing massage business, and the main reason why we decided to leave was after Sanjay Gupta's special about cannabis, and my mom was like, Sheila, oh look, I'm telling my name, but Sheila, you should watch this special. And I'm just like, yes, mommy, yes, cannabis is great, whatever, right? And then the Denver Cup, which was the first legal cup in the country, we went, and before then, the most people I had smoked was like 10, 12 people. Most people I'd smoked with at any given time. Because in Florida, it was totally cool to be a cokehead. It was totally cool, not just Florida, but in Miami Beach, totally cool to be a cokehead. But in terms of talking about cannabis, people acted like, oh no, I didn't do that. So It's not like I had a very large community, with regard to that. When I went out to Denver and there were 80,000 people at that cup, my mind was blown. I knew that I knew nothing about cannabis. I had just the smallest idea of what cannabis could be. So then a couple months later, I went to the Seattle Cup. And again, it was a situation of like, wow, I'm missing out, and I don't want to be missing out. I don't want to miss out on this goodness. So then we went to Oaksterdam in December of that year and became valedictorians because we were growing weed already. I just didn't know if you needed some validation to say that like this is someone who could be in the cannabis industry. And while we were in Amsterdam, we reached out to a CO2 company so that we could learn how to make CO2. So the first concentrate I learned how to make was CO2. We went up to Seattle, did a 2-week internship at Washington Alternative Medicine. And so I learned how to make CO2. And I realized that's not really what I wanted to do. It's not like I knew I wanted to make hash, but I didn't want to make CO2. It was a little too clinical, a little too noisy. The lab environment was not ideal for me, but I knew I wanted to do something. And our business had been thriving, but the truth of the matter is that I lost a huge client, and I was so depressed that I just needed to change my life. So then we moved here.
So what was the reason for losing the clients?
My massage was my client.
Oh, wow. Okay. So from Miami, where did you head next?
Just right here. That's it. I was like, my life has changed. So what happened is we came over here in the end of June to get an apartment, to get our license, to get our medical card, and to go to a cup. I like getting a lot of things done. So we made all of that happen, and we went to the cup, which was the High Times NorCal Cup for 2014. And at the time, I knew about dabbing, so I was taking dabs everywhere. I mean, I was lit like a firecracker. I was so good. And at one point, I saw this booth that was, I mean, it was classic. It had leather everywhere. There were all these people really crowded on the booth. So me being me, I just kind of got myself to the front, figured there must be some great dabs in the front there. And I was very disappointed to see that there was nothing but these hunks of chocolate, like just giant hunks of chocolate. And I don't like chocolate. So I was very much unimpressed. And as I walked away, like, it's not even any dabs here. It's just some chocolate. This little man goes, "This is not chocolate, this is hashish." I was like, "What, you dabbed it?" He said, "But of course." So I dabbed it. It was great. Took a picture with the guy and like went about my way. I just knew him as this little French man. Right. So then we moved here a week later, and I tried to find a job, having Love Life Massage, it wasn't just like a small massage company. We had like all kinds of A-list clients. My husband massaged Beyonce. You know what I'm saying? That's the level that we were doing. My resume did not allow me to get a bud tender job. I wanted to just get in however I fit in, right? And I figure, I know more than enough about cannabis. I'll be a bud tender and I'll work my way up. I have no issue with being humble, but no one will hire me. And so then I went to another cup and ended up meeting this French guy again and asked him to have some coffee. And in talking to him, communicating with him, having a smoke with him, he liked how I talked and how I expressed myself about the hash experience, and asked if I would write for Weed World magazine about hash. And so I was down with that. I said yes, not knowing that the only way he was going to give me that opportunity was if I learned how to make hash. And I was not really pressed to learn how to make hash. I was like, but I really do want this opportunity. So I said yes. And so that was September 10th of 2014. And that day is when I decided I was going to be a hash maker. Once I made hash the first time, I was like, this is it. So that's it. I literally decided I was going to be a hash maker. My husband was a trim broker, so any excess trim or what he could get his hands on, I bought machines, I bought all the bags, and I just started making hash in my spare room without Frenchy even knowing about it, because he didn't really think that I was going to do it. He just wanted me to understand about hash making so that I could write about it with some level of effectiveness. But I was just in love with hash making, and it wasn't until he found out I was doing like 3/4 of a pound for a dispensary, 337 grams of hash for a dispensary, that he realized that I was like serious about it. I had already been on Instagram posting things and such like that. I really encouraged him to get on Instagram. So he got in a couple of months later, and it has been a blessing because I love hash making. And in writing for Weed World magazine, I get to meet, well, I don't write for them anymore. I do my own thing. But in writing for them for 5 years, I got a chance to meet all types of hash makers with different perspectives and experiences. And I used every single person informed my particular technique in some way. So worked out for me.
Definitely. I love it. So that Frenchman, that was Frenchy Cannoli.
Yes.
That's Master Hashmaker. How did you stumble upon having tea with Frenchy?
Oh, see, people don't understand basic things about networking. Ask. That was it. I said, Frenchy, I'm new here in California, and no one would give me a job. Will you please have some coffee with me so I could talk to you? That was the whole thing.
Serious.
Literally, that's it. Most of the times, one of the things that's amazing about the cannabis industry right now, and it has been for several years, and it probably still will be for a while, which is different from other industries. And whenever people ask me, how do you get in? Is that right now you have the ability to touch the tops of industry, like right there. You can connect a lot easier than, let's say, if you were getting into nanotechnology or something, and you need to talk to the head of the firm. That's not how it works in the cannabis industry. We have a lot more mobility. And so now's the time to put fear to the side, be willing to be vulnerable, and ask somebody, can I have a little bit of your time? That's all I did. And Frenchy said that he had never been asked for coffee since before then. Never. No one had ever asked him to coffee.
That's I can understand that because it would be intimidating. I met Frenchy last year for the first time, and it was the same. It was the same. We build these respects for these people that we love what they do, and sometimes you just feel a little bit intimidated. I guess you could say we have to look inside ourselves to find out what mental illness do we have. I've learned that I do have anxiety. I do have a little bit of insecurity. And these are certain big things that stop you from doing bigger things in your life. So I kind of understand about sometimes you just got to do.
Yeah, the biggest thing. I got to tell you, when I go to these events and then I come back and I'm posting pictures and whatever, and people are like, oh, I saw you at such and such, but I didn't say anything. I have run into less than 5 people in this entire industry with whom you wouldn't want to say hi to because the vibe that they'll give you will be so terrible. Right. That's the thing. A lot of times people think this is high school. It's not. We're grown-ups. They can't kill you. They can't kill you. They can't throw blood on you. It'll be all right. Because it's their law. Once you know what you bring to the table, then it's not like about, oh, I'm so dope that I don't care that they don't like me. But it might be like, oh, we're just not vibing right now. So it doesn't matter who they are or who you are. If we don't vibe, we don't vibe. Just keep it moving. We might vibe tomorrow, but it's okay. And I think people sell themselves short when they say, oh, I'm just a this, or they downplay themselves. I have a post about humility. It's not about thinking that you're better than people, but realizing that we're all in this together. Not one person here is making this earth spin by itself or making it spin at all. So if that's the case, then it's to all of our benefit that we somehow make some collaborative effort. But guess what? Can't say anything unless you open up your mouth.
Preach. Well said. I so like it. I so like it. So now you're at the point now. You're here in Oakland. You've met the Master Frenchy Cannoli. He's led you into becoming a writer, writing these very, very well-written articles for these magazines. You have a different style. Well, you have a style of your own, that's for sure. Very poetic. Your words are very, very specific, and they flow like caramel.
This I was taking it alongside with me because I'm so happy for the opportunity. Don't think that I don't smoke all this stuff from around the world. I'm just I'm so lucky.
Well, hey, we're lucky. I'm glad you took the time to even sit with us and let us get a little bit into your life, and so the people out here can see that, hey, this woman is very inspirational. She's cool as hell. And she makes some badass hash.
Some hash. I mean, maybe Cannabis. I don't know. September. Well, I don't know.
Yeah. We'll see what the future brings. That's an unknown right now, and I guess we're all going to take it day by day. So you've appeared on Viceland. When? At what point in time did that take place?
The first time I got on Viceland was I videotaped that in 2017. So that was September of 2017. See, that's another situation of sometimes you just gotta go out there. So I was contracted out of Tony Vazura out of Blue River, aka Advesa Wellness. I was making hash out of his lab, and I made hash for a breeder named OG Steve. OG Steve had this purple tangy that was, oh man, is the best tangy I had ever smelled. And I got a chance to wash it in the lab, and then because Tony allowed me to wash in the lab, I gave him some right before he was going to LA to meet up with friends. When he went to LA, he was smoking on it and ran into Jason Pinsky, who was the producer of Vice. Jason liked it so much. He was like, oh, I need to have that person who had made that on our show somehow. So then I got a call from Pinsky on a Tuesday saying, hey, can you come down to LA on Thursday because we have this show. I was just like, oh, I'll come to LA on Thursday. We'll make that work out somehow. And for real, we'll make that work out. And it was my first time being on a movie. No, actually, so this was in 16th, a movie set. First time being on a movie set, like very first time. And all these cameras and all this stuff happening. It was in a mansion. They were doing it on set, but like getting strapped up for audio. I was like, oh, I think I could like this. I think I could like this. I think I could like this. And so it was the Bedouin birthday Abdullah was having, and Vanessa Lovato was the main chef, and she made an amazing meal of smoked labna and baklava, and it was just, oh my goodness, it was so great. And it was so nice to really be able to talk about hash, not only just being in the lab, but being able to talk about it, and it was glamorous and whatever. I was like, oh, I like this. And after that, I did a couple of other educational shows and stuff. But when it came down to season 3, and I was asked to come for 2 shows, but one of them, they had changed the format from being like a themed idea to being this cooking show. I was going to be a judge on one, and then I was going to make hash. I was actually going to make hash on television. So super cool. Set. We didn't have any machine. We didn't have any bags. We didn't have anything when I got there. And I have to say props to Bolt Bag, who was in LA at the time. They got us a machine, they got us the jacket, they got us the bags. And to hear Be Real call my hash legendary was like, I used to grow weed, and now you're legendary. It's like, For real, I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I like fanned out about that. And then Too Short was on one of those shows as well. And so my situation with Too Short is that, so I smoke these big uh-ohs. They're 7 grams, right? So when we had an off time, Too Short saw it, and he wasn't trying to like smoke it. And I had to kind of get in his face again, because I don't have an issue. If we're breathing the same air, I don't have an issue talking to anybody. Because the truth of the matter is we're all silently passing gas. So if we're all doing that, we're all gonna be cool, right? So Too Short, I kind of stood over him, and I was like, you're famous already. This is my moment. You're gonna smoke this, and this is how you're gonna do it. You're not gonna put it to your lips. I'm gonna show it to you. I was a little bit aggressive, but at the same time, I'm like, this is my moment.
Yeah.
This is my moment. You are not gonna do this. So when the cameras came on and everything, and it got to us smoking the then Too Short says, oh, you're gonna have to show me how to do it again. And I'm thinking, yup, because I showed you already. Get it right, sir. Get it right. But it's been a fun time. I have my little fan moments. But the reason why I'm specifically like, just go for it, is this one thing that I have known from having the massage company and having a lot of celebrity clients, and within cannabis, getting to meet some people of some notoriety, is that everybody is just people. The people who you know of are people who believed in themselves enough to follow their dreams so hardcore that you know about them. But guess what? Again, with the farting and also with the pants, same way. So we're all the same. That's why it's to the benefit for everyone, because you could think of the fact that you could be bringing benefit to someone else's life. Frenchy only decided to work with me because he needed someone to write about hash from an unbiased standpoint. I happen to be someone who writes, and I was super unbiased because I didn't know anything about hash. See, that just worked out. It wasn't like I had some specific skill set within hash that made me attractive to him is whatever I was bringing to the table. And a lot of times people downplay the things they can do. You do logistics, believe me, someone in this industry needs someone to help them with logistics. You're good at like planning and organizing. Hello, can you come over here? Because I'm letting things fall by the wayside. Glad you reached out.
Oh, shit.
Hey, you know,
I love chopping it up with you, man. You something else. You something else. So you've also been a big judge for a lot of international competitions. Let's talk about that a little bit. Which has been one of your favorites?
Easily Masters of Rosin. Masters of Rosin in Barcelona is super fun. Masters of Rosin this year, you know, before we had to hightail it back out of the country, had 49 flower and hash rosin entries, and they were primo. So the reason I like Master Rosin is because the selection is fantastic, and it always comes with a nice rig and clothing and everything. It's a whole setup, you know what I mean? And it's high quality, and the experience is fantastic. And working with David of HQ is really phenomenal. So that has been my favorite.
So what do you got to do for being a judge? Well, how do you judge?
Oh, you judge based on, I mean, I know someone said, oh, I'm going to start promoting things so I can judge. That's not how you get judgeships. You get judgeships generally by demonstrating some level of proficiency, not just some level, but a level of proficiency with whatever you're judging. Like, I wouldn't be a person to judge what they call indica, because it's not indica, but indica flowers, because I have low blood pressure. So I'm not gonna get through but 2 entries before I like pass out. That's not gonna be helpful. I have a palate for hash. I smoke a lot of hash. I make my own hash. I smoke a lot of hash. I write about hash. I know hash makers. I know how it's supposed to be. So at the end of the day, judging for concentrates is generally on 4 or 5 things. Masters of Rosin was on smell, taste, and appearance. Sometimes they have it on effect, but the problem with that is if you're doing too many entries, that's not really as telltale because you're really doing so many things. But smell, appearance, and taste. And there's another one. Because it comes up to 20. But smell, no, it comes to 15. Smell, appearance is when you get an entry, when you get an entry, like I'm really happy that in my top 5 for Masters of Rosin, 3 of them were the top. So, like what I chose as top 5, 3 of them podium finishes. You're looking for an amazing color. You're looking for an amazing color. Now, color can be many different things, but there's a visceral reaction you get when you see something beautiful. So it's on the aesthetics immediately. The smell. Now, smell has different levels. When you open up a jar initially, there is a smell that wafts up. Underneath that smell, when you come in closer, there's another smell right there. And if you smell with a very delicate way of pulling, I don't know if you ever smelled a rose, and if you pull too hard, you get a lot of the most volatile terpenes, but you don't get that underlying smell. And so you bring it in nice and delicately, that will tell you something. And you judge based on that. Then you taste it. And that's the whole thing. You take a dab, you taste what it tastes like initially in your mouth as it's going down, if it's harsh, when you exhale, what that terpene smells like, all of that goes into it. So it's not, you have to do that for all those options. So I did that for 49 different samples for Masters of Rosin this year.
So how long did it take you to get through the samples?
Oh, I got to get mine in 2 days. So I did mine from Saturday to, I was done on Thursday, Saturday to Thursday. Sunday, Monday, 5 days.
Okay. So that's some time.
Oh yeah, it's definitely intense. It's super intense, but for me, it's like a job. Like people put a lot of their time into providing these entries, so we have to afford them the time to really appreciate their work. And so what I did this year was not only did I judge, but I also did notes. Just so that if there was something that was really close to something else, I would come back so I could take a dab again on a different palette, different time. I also ate lemon sorbet in between all my dabs so I could cleanse my palate.
Wow, is that what lemon sorbet does?
Oh yes, definitely. If you're doing any kind of taste testing of some sort, you should do some sorbet in between. It cleanses the palate, and then after a couple minutes, it's like your mouth is new again. So you don't have anything overly citrusy in your mouth. You don't have anything overly funky or anything. Lemon sorbet is the way to go. Lemon sorbet.
So did you put an entry into the competition at all?
No, that would definitely. What I would have wanted to do is something like Legends of Hashish, but that didn't happen. That's Bubbleman's competition. I judged 3 different cups in Barcelona this year, and so I wasn't putting anything in. What I did do was I did demos. So with this one club, Aranua, washed, hash, another club did a chillum session 2 days later, which was phenomenal, where we spoke to hash and we talked. That was really good. So I got a chance to wash hash with Aranua, and also my favorite club in Barcelona, which is La Calada. And the hashmaker for La Calada is Bobby Calada. And I've learned, he's been the person probably I've learned the second most from in terms of hash. And I did get a chance to do some hand washing with him. So that was really fantastic.
So what is your favorite way to make hash?
Right now, my favorite way is bubble hash that I make with the machine. But I have to say that these 2 times of making hash by hand and learning a technique that doesn't exacerbate the bursitis that I've had in my shoulders since '98, I have to say I'm thinking about moving that way. It's a little bit more craft, it's a lot more hands-on, rather than just putting it in the machine. The thing is, I've pretty much perfected my machine habits. I listen to the ice, I listen to the water. When I'm teaching people about hash, I speak in terms of, do you hear clink, 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 clink? Oh, So I have really gotten used to it very much that way, but I'm always learning. And you don't stay on top, not to indicate that I'm on top, but I'm definitely not on the bottom. You don't stay on top without always learning, And so any opportunity that I get to learn from willing participants, people who are willing to help me grow, I appreciate. And I've learned from just about everybody in the game. Anybody who's making any kind of impact, I've learned something. And I'm happy. Thank you. Thank you all.
Hey, well, I'm sure everybody's thanking you too, because you've given enough lessons to people. So you are giving classes. Tell us about the classes that you're giving out.
Well, I am giving classes, and now I'm actually going to switch to a virtual class as well. I felt like I spent a lot of time, in the last 5.5 years creating content, which I both pushed through Instagram and then on YouTube. And when I saw that my YouTube numbers in terms of views, I have one particular video about pressing hash has 200,000 views. I was like, maybe I should do this a little bit more, more of a format kind of thing. And a friend of mine really pushed me early this year to you're already teaching this all the time. Why don't you make a class? So I had my very first class in Oakland. Well, before that, I had my first class in Mexico, which was a little bit nerve-wracking because it was being taught in English for me, but then translated in Spanish by someone who spoke Portuguese. Have to say, though, it went so well because my family's from Panama. So although my Spanish should be a lot better than it is, but my own vulnerabilities and insecurities, I get nervous about things. So then I switch it to English. I could understand that what was being translated was exactly what I was saying about hash. And the way I teach my class, I am very hands-on. I'm going to teach you how to do it. I'm not so heavy on theory because that's not how I learn. I'm going to teach you how to do it. And because hash is a series of iterative moves, I'm going to do the first 2 runs in front of the class, and the last 4 to 6 runs the class is going to do. And I have to tell you, the first 2 runs they're watching. When they start doing the runs themselves, and then they're like, oh, Duchess, pero, I'm like, oh, y'all are getting it. Once people start coming up with different ways of achieving something, that's when you know that their mind is working. And one of the specific ways that I teach is, I know that I was always trying to not one up Frenchy, but figured Frenchy was doing something so traditionally, perhaps I had a different perspective. So I messed up a lot of hash, made a lot of really bad hash in the beginning too, a lot of hash because of Frenchy said you have to do this, but let me see if I do it this way. So when I'm teaching people, I'm teaching them you may think that you can do this, and I could see why you would think that, But let me tell you why that's not going to work, because I want to say, yes, everything's going to be some amount of trial and error, but I want to save people the waste of time of thinking they could just do it better. We will always be improving. At the same time, there's some pitfalls that to a naive or unlearned person, they may see it as like, oh, we could just jump this over here. Let me disabuse you of that notion. Let's get that. I will tell people, you may think to do this, this is why. And so I have these videos of like, why did this not work? You know, explaining this roundabout way that someone went for something. Or once people have some wrong thinking, if you can correct that, a lot of times they can grow an even bigger tree than if you just put your own sapling there. You just gotta like rework that situation, and the ideas that come with that self-directed learning, I think that's invaluable. So I'm not here to just make other duchesses. I'm just saying, here, this is how this works. See what you do after that.
I love it. That's some solid advice. That's definitely for sure. So let's talk about temple balls.
Okay.
Because those are some pretty ass pieces of hash.
Aren't they?
Yeah. How did you come about the temple balls? That's something from Frenchy?
From Frenchy, for sure. So Frenchy, actually my first real solid piece of writing besides magazines was writing about the temple ball experience with Frenchy for Ed Rosenthal's book about concentrates. And so Frenchy, in teaching me how to make hash, so what happens, he did a wash with me. I made hash, I pressed the hash, I really liked it. And then I kept going back by him to learn a little bit more, help him get ice, and just basically being in his energy as he just was giving me all this information. All the while, I still didn't know exactly really who Frenchy was, you know? But he mentioned about this idea of these temple balls, the Nepalese temple balls, which are these pieces of hash of glorious fame. And yes, sometimes they had other things in them besides cannabis, but the whole idea about a temple ball is we don't have a refrigerator everywhere. And hash should be able to sit in a space and mature in a mass without being subject to the ravages of oxygen. So when you roll hash into a ball, or when they did that in Nepal, then they would have this large ceramic plate, which they would roll the hash around on it. And what it does, or what it did, is that it made a thin shell, like an M&M, you know, that thin shell. And that shell is the only thing that really came in contact with the oxygen. So what was inside was able to mature. You know, it's always chemical processes continually happening. As long as resin isn't frozen super solid, the trichomes are always doing something. Terpenes are always working on themselves, changing some way. The flavonoids are changing. All of that happens within the mass of the ball. So with that ball that can just sit in room temperature at any time for any length of time, when you open it, it's like, oh, it's magic. It's the texture inside is a mixture of cream and nougat and just absolute loveliness. The smell that comes off of it is it's great. It's great. So that's the value of making temple balls. Really comes down to being able to preserve and age it. So yeah, you can make temple balls and then keep dabbing up from it right then. What you've done is married all the trichomes together, melted them together, allowed them to begin maturing, you know, together. But if you're dabbing it within a week, you know, nothing is happening. Really, you don't see changes until from 3 months on. And, you know, I'm lucky because Frenchy spoke to me in such a loving way about pressed hash that I began not pressed hash, aged hash. I began aging hash since 2014. So my very first piece of hash, which I called Wrinkly, which was still in the cannoli shape that he used to do. I broke into it last year at Hall of Flowers, and it had that thin shell, and in the inside it was this black creaminess that was mind-blowing, like mind-blowing. The color, it was
how long was that? How long was that? How long was that aged?
Oh, 5 years.
Okay.
5 years. So that was great. And since then, I found 4 more pieces of hash, all in temple ball form, though, that have, when you break them open, they all look the same. You know what they look like? Especially the darker the material, it looks like moist chocolate cake inside. It's like that shiny.
I had to bring it up because just a little while ago, you found some old Larry OG, correct?
Yes, that's one of the temple books. Yes.
I seen how happy you were when you found that old Larry OG.
Yes, I was like super happy. So, I mean, beyond happy. Happy is like not, that doesn't even really express how I feel about it, because I'm lucky. The thing is, you can always get super dank. You can get super dank from anywhere, right? But if you have super dank that has been aging, it's a totally different experience, a totally different feel. It's
that says it all. That silence says it all. So
I mean, what can I say about it? What can I say for like?
I need that experience in my life, Duchess.
Oh, I would love to. I would love to. And then, so I love dabs, but if you want to really have both that traditional experience and the traditional hash, I'm going to say find some mild flower, something that's not too overpowering, or something that you know the flavor of itself, that you can, in a way, it can be a mask that it can fade to the back of your mind, and put a nice chunk of hash on a chillum. Smoke some chillum with me, darling.
Yo, straight, hell yeah. So tell everybody about your famous
My uh-ohs. I wish, do I have an uh-oh here? I think I have an uh-oh here. I do. Can you hear me? My uh-oh that's in that drawer. So my uh-ohs they were born. I did not invent the uh-oh. I called it I invented a little name, but my uh-ohs came from the fact that one time I got on Instagram back in 2016, and I saw someone taking a whole bunch of flour and adding shatter into it and some other like CO2 or something, but they made a fairly sizable joint. Well, I felt like I could do the exact same thing, but I could do it with hash and rosin or something. And so I made this joint that was pretty big. It was about 4 grams, and that was good. But what was different about my uh-ohs as they came to be is that I made them the same size of my chillum, my chillum. And so they fit in boxes, like big boxes. It's not something that you could put in your hand. The chillum, the I'm looking for right now, I just found it. It was in a random black box, but it has 28 filters, always 28, exactly 28 filters. And it's 7 grams of weed and hash. It's 7 grams of weed and hash. And that breaks down to 5 grams of weed, 2 grams of hash. I have found that as the best balance, because if you have too much hash, then it's not going to burn properly. And if you have too much flour, then you don't get the bestness of having the hash. And I call it uh-ohs because that stands for orifice openers. And it has a little speech. You want to hear the little speech about the orifice opener?
Of course.
It looks like this, and it's in that cloud in there. It's in the box. Okay, here is the speech about the orifice openers. It's so pretty. It's so pretty that your eyes widen. It smells so good that your nose opens. It's so dank and loud that your ears open. It's so big that your mouth drops open. It looks like a wild ride. So for those of us so inclined, those lips open. And for those of us who stick up our ass, it'll drop it right out.
Bang.
Bang. I'm trying to show you this that I have. It's in a box that looks like this. In that other drawer. I have this one uh-oh. It'd be great for you to smell me smoking this uh-oh, but I guess don't know where it is. I do have one uh-oh. I don't know where it is. Don't worry about it. I don't know where it is.
So when are you possibly coming to Canada?
When am I coming up to Canada? I was in Canada in November. I was speaking at the Spirit Plant Medicine Conference about how hashish in large amounts is a psychedelic that we all should experience. Okay. I'm always pushing that. hashish. I'm always pushing the hashish. But at the same time, I mean, if we are able to, I think Lyft would be great. You know, I heard the Lyft conference is fantastic. I hear Toronto is almost as gorgeous as my beloved New York. I don't know.
I'll say this. Toronto's probably like one of the boroughs, right? So you're coming out of Brooklyn, right? All right. So it's like one of the boroughs because we have lots of family in Brooklyn.
I mean, I'm feeling Toronto, you know, because it looks stylish. It's very international. I know that, so I'm feeling that. And plus, since my one issue is that I don't know if hash is felonious, so I don't want you know, to do anything felonious at all. But if it's open for it, I'm open.
Well, we definitely, anyhow, you're coming to Canada. We definitely would love to spend a little time with you. Definitely to hit one of those OOs and catch up with some of your positivity.
I wish I could smoke one right now. I know there's one floating about. I don't know what happened to it, but there will always be another time.
Right. There's no stipulations here. If you had one handy and you felt like lighting it up, you are more than welcome to light that bad.
I've been smoking all this time, man.
Sorry, I should have made that clear. This is Weed Talks, man.
Yeah. Oh no, you like messing me up, man, sir. You like messing me up. I would have like got the myself. You messed me up. I'm telling you.
I apologize. I apologize.
Yeah, I had this large okay, so now it is not exactly where I thought it was. I had this if I had known that, look, I was just being all sober and everything. I will show you the original see, this is literally the original one.
Okay.
The one that I said, and this is why I called it see, it has a white O in it around a brown O. So then I called it, I was like, oh, like this is an O and an O. Then I was like, oh, but I like the word orifice. It just came to me. I was like, orifice. This is going to be an orifice opener. And then I just worked it out. But yes, this is the original. So this one right here is when I'm 4 years old. I'm good for like keeping things like for that amount of time. I'm like,
yeah.
But
so,
yeah.
I know you play a little bit of steel pan.
Not a little bit. I played for 30 years.
All right.
I played with band. Big band.
Yes. So tell people a little bit about that. That's it's more than a hobby.
Oh, more definitely. I've played the pen since '89. So I started in the 4th grade in my private school in Brooklyn. And after that, I started playing with bands in '90. So there's a competition that happens every year in Trinidad. It's the largest steel pan competition. It's called Panorama. But the second largest one is in Brooklyn. And so I've played Panorama since 1990 in most of the years for quite a while. And then I played in several different bands based on whatever state I lived in. And the thing about pan is that, or steel pan, it's just an orchestra. They're different instruments that make up an orchestra. And there are some correlations between like a steel band and a European classical band. So like I play the tenor pan and the double tenor, which would be the equivalent of playing the violin and the viola. There are other instruments after that. One of them is called double seconds, which really can't really say anything, but there's a pan called a cello, which plays the same thing as a cello would. It's a pan called a guitar, which is really guitar. And it plays like what a bass guitar would play. And then there's the bass drums. And that goes from 4 bass, which is tenor bass, to you can have all 18 basses. Those people are like jumping all over the place to hit different notes. Yeah. And, steel pan is just an instrument, meaning that like it's a melodic instrument. It conforms to the same scales that we have. I play the flute and the piano also. So I play a lot of classical music, like on my Instagram and such. I play a lot of classical music because by myself, that's what I use to keep my skills where they need to be. And it's a meditative practice for me. With bands, although classical music is very much part of repertoire, especially of the larger, more established bands, you can play anything from soca to jazz to calypso to rock to just about anything can be played. It's just an instrument. So when people are like, I didn't know you could play this on that, I was like, well, It says a C and a C sharp and a D and an E flat, just like every other instrument.
So have you ever got to the carnival on the Parkway there in Brooklyn?
Yeah, actually, my dad lives on Eastern Parkway, and I definitely played the carnival since 1990.
Okay, nice.
Yes, sure.
Myself, yeah, I'm a Trini.
Oh, you're a Trinidadian. Okay, well then you definitely understand.
Yeah, I do. I feel the vibe. So when you get up in your mornings and you bust a little pen, I tune in.
Yeah. That's good to know. Let me find out, Lester. Okay, I'll keep that in mind. Pin it to the phone. I see you. Pin it to the phone. I'm a Panamanian myself, but you pin it to the bone. I got you.
All right. I love it. Well, Duchess, so thank you so much for the time. There's so much more we could talk about, but I definitely want to catch up with you in the future. Why don't you let everybody know what do you have coming up in the future? I know that we have this to get through the COVID first, but what is new on the palette that everybody can expect to see from you?
Well, without revealing too much, because they say you shouldn't, but I am definitely looking to be doing a couple more things on television, so that's pretty great. I would like to see a lot more representation that looks like me within the cannabis space, but without having to be like, put me on your table. I'm good on that. That's why I have Mocha Mary Jane, which is going to be a hub of information about cannabis and women that look like me. And I'm focused very much on resin and rosin and bringing that information to the masses. So I'm working on an online magazine. So I figure in this 5 or 6 more weeks we have on this, there's no reason why I can't really put a stamp on some of these things, because whereas I do love writing, I feel like being able to use my popularity and provide a platform for other writers to jump off that really can add to the space. I think that's the best thing that's gonna happen to me this year. That's what I feel. Like seeing other writers blossom and get their perspectives out in this cannabis game, that to me is gonna be where it's at.
Well, lady, you are truer than true. You definitely do like making people happy. I am stoked and ecstatic to be sitting here and talking with you. It's been a pleasure. And we're definitely going to catch up more into the future. Guys, you can go to her website, the Dank Duchess. You want to find out all about hashish. This lady is on her way to being a master of masters. Check her out on Instagram. No, don't give me that. Listen, I was going to get into how you cuss people, because I watched you drop some fire on a boy.
Yeah, he was hating. That's the thing. Look, you see how you said I like to make people happy? It's not even that. That's its own issue. But I feel if we could all blossom from within without peanut gallery people downing us. We don't realize how much that people are always smothering ideas, even small ideas. They just don't want you to shine, but not really always out of a malicious intent. They themselves don't understand that they're not shining, so they're feeling badly. And hurt people. And whereas I'm usually compassionate about that, the dude was mad about my uh-ohs. Like, who's mad about the fact that I grow my own weed and make my own hash and I make it shiny? Who's mad? How upset of a person do you have to be for that to be how you put your energy out in the world? So whereas I'm getting better at being sweet with people, and sometimes you gotta be, let motherfucker know, hell no. So, you know what I'm saying? I'm still from Brooklyn, and I'm still Panamanian.
Don't get it twisted.
But hey.
Well, guys, this has been our time. This has been Weed Talks. The Dank Duchess. Go to the website, check it out. This lady's got a wealth of information. She only wants to teach for those that want to learn. So keep your head open and your mind strong. For everybody out there, stay strong through this COVID-19. We're all going to get through this together. Duchess?
Yes.
Peace and stay cool.
Peace. Have a good one.
All right. Thank you.